Welcome back to Hashtag Single with Jeanette Bonner. I am not a relationship expert or sex therapist. I'm just a regular New York City woman navigating the world as a single, independent feminist. Hashtag Single is about having honest conversations with other singles in today's device-obsessed culture. So I hope you'll join me on this interesting, challenging, and complex journey as we navigate the ins and outs of singledom.
Hey, you guys, welcome back to Hashtag Single. I'm Jeanette, your host. Happy end of year. This is our final episode of 2021. In lieu of having a final one-on-one episode with a fabulous female single guest, I'm doing something a little different. It's been a crazy year. I don't know about you, but it's felt like 400 years to me. It's wild to think back about what we were doing and where we were at in January. So if you didn't find you had enough time to listen to full episodes of the podcast this year, or if you're just a woman on the run and want the Cliff Notes version, I made a special bonus episode for you that has the very best little snippets of every single one of my guest expert episodes this year. We had an incredible array of female guests talking about everything from female empowerment to finances to dating while having kids and dealing with divorce. I mean, we really covered the gamut. I loved looking back at all these episodes. I hope you do too. I'm going to put in the episode notes if you want to listen to full episodes, or maybe just this nice mashup will be enough to encourage and inspire you to have a strong, badass, fabulous 2022. Either way, I hope you enjoy this episode, and I very much look forward to bringing you new content next year. Enjoy.
Like you said, maybe before you just had to show up and be like, and ask her dad out for a date. Maybe that's like really a long time ago. But like, you know what I mean? Like now, no, like you and I talked about our own personal standards. Like it is not enough. You better, you got to you got to climb all the way up to 100 to tell me that you're worthy of what I want in my life. And maybe that's scary, like that you have to work harder to win a woman over.
Yeah. Or that you're not viewed as this prize anymore. Because I think that's the biggest part of it, that men have been viewed as a prize. Even if you think about, like, if you look at relationship coaches and dating coaches, I wrote an entire story on why there's so many male dating coaches who are coaching women, who are women's coaches. So and one of the coaches said that it was because he's never come across a guy that said he wanted to learn how to connect better with his wife or with his girlfriend. It's always the opposite, where a woman wants to learn how to connect better with men or with her husband. And that, to me, is a big problem, because you should want to connect with your wife or your spouse or, your partner. But it's this idea that for a woman to snag a man and to get a man to marry us is an achievement, and he's a prize. And that view, I think, has made it maybe a little easier, because it's like, okay, I want you, I want to marry you. And it was just like, I'm flattered. It's like, okay, he wants to marry me, but now it's just like, oh, well, I don't know. I don't think this is going to work. And
what if I don't even want to be married?
Right.
Like, there's tons of women that are just like, I don't want that.
Right. And it's kind of like, what? How dare you? So, I think there's maybe some hurt egos out there, and, you don't like that. You don't like that if your ego is wounded to the point where it makes you feel insecure about yourself. So I think that's a big part of it. And though we are evolving, like I said, it's just the whole thing, our old mindsets just die hard.
Yeah, and change is uncomfortable.
Exactly.
But if you say, hey, when you're with a partner and they have a job promotion, how do you celebrate that?
Yeah.
That isn't female empowerment, because you want to know, how would someone handle your accomplishments? How would someone handle supporting you and it only being about you?
Yeah.
Right.
That's definitely that's like a conversation, I feel like, when you start to get to know someone, like maybe you actually meet in person. But I wonder if there's an easier way to break that down when you're just like first chit-chatting with someone, like first getting to know them.
Sure.
Is there like an easy icebreaker question that wouldn't have them running for the hills?
Yeah. So let's see. One, I would say is to, again, have your boundaries and maybe even some of the clues for you in mind, right? Because individually, you're going to have different things that scream, female empowerment and don't to you. To me, I think that you're going to have some differences in what you're looking for in a partner with how they handle female empowerment. So, for yourself, definitely have some of those maybe phrases, things that you would want them to say, or things that you would want to hear, ways that they may describe other women in their life, or ways that they may describe their partner in a way that's like, hey, when things are tough, what will you do? What would be your role, right? So I wouldn't necessarily say you'd have to, drill in very specific in the beginning questions, but I would say as you're talking and you are maybe learning more about them, what they do, their day to day, you might want to say, hey, if they say this, or if they mention these things, or, if there are certain ways they describe women in their life, that could give you a little bit more of an understanding about them. Again, especially in the beginning.
So I mean, this seems like an antiquated problem, but here we are in modern culture, 2021. What is it about modern women that still places blame on women, but not on men? This feels like an equality issue that we just can't surpass.
I think it just has to do with how we are assessed and valued, again, through quote unquote societal eyes. Men are valued for their earning potential, the job and the car they're driving, and these other economic factors. That's how they are assessed as successful or not. And women, we can have all those other things, but really at the end of the day, and not that you and I think this, but the majority of people still, whether they realize it or not, they value women based on who the woman is in relationship with. And that starts with, who are you dating and what does he do, right? And then it's, what does your husband do? And I mean, we take their names when we get married. I mean, is there any more profound way to identify with another person than to share the same name? So, and then after that, it's, well, whose kid is yours? Which kid is yours? So then we go to, our identity is always assessed, and our value and our worth in society is estimated by our relationships. So what happens is then grandma and mom are worried that if their daughter doesn't have that relationship, they are worried that others will see her as less than. They will devalue her worth as a person and member of the society. So then grandma and mom go, shoot, did we raise her incorrectly? We didn't teach her how to snag a man. So then grandma and mom say things very disparaging, like, fix it. Whatever you're doing with the men, do you need to flirt more? Do you need to put on more makeup? Do you need to lose 10 pounds? Do you need to wear a low-cut dress? Whatever you need to do, fix it, because we need you to have the status that we think you deserve because we love you. It's coming from a place of love, though it doesn't feel like that. And so fix it, and then elevate your status so that you can be deemed worthy of being in partnership with a man, and then we can breathe a sigh of relief that we've done our job and you're okay, and everyone sees the worth and the value that you inherently have, but we need society to give their approval as well.
It's so crazy to me that we're still dealing with that
crowd. Oh, but we are.
I know. Well, that makes me think of two things. Well, first of all, it reinforces what you were just talking about. Like, people are afraid to not be in relationships because it almost has this kind of like picked last for kickball feeling. Like, and I've been asked my fair share of like, why are you single? You seem like a great person. The subtext being, obviously there's some hidden flaw that I can't find since nobody has found you yet. I've also been, I've had language delivered to me of like, well, you're pretty, you'll find someone, kind of like someone will discover you on this tree. Don't worry about it. Just bide your time, kind of thing. You know what I mean? But, and I literally have a quote on my wall that I don't remember it, so I'm not going to misquote it, but I'm going to paraphrase it in that it's like, most people in the world are in relationships because being single is scarier than the prospect of, staying in a unhappy relationship. I want to share this side story with you. So when I read that chapter, I was curious about what my mother's experience has been, because my mom and I don't even talk about my dating life.
Yeah.
Part of me is like, I think that's because she's given up on me. but I was like, you know what? Let me just ask. I wonder what she says when people ask her about my single life. You know, like, why is she still single? She must be too picky, etc. So I asked her. And I want to just share this with you. So she said she hasn't fielded that question from people. She says it's a very personal question and it doesn't come up. So that's one thing, you know, but she said to me, if it did, she would say she's got a very busy life and she doesn't want to be tied down to anyone or anything. She just wants to be happy on her own. I'm sorry that she doesn't have a companion. I would love for her to have a companion, but I think she's living her life on her own terms and doing what makes her happy, and that makes me happy.
Oh, I love that.
I was like, well, I mean, I do want a companion, and I'm not necessarily like, I don't refuse to be tied down, but everything else, she got, 98% correct. Like, I'm very happy. I do have a busy life. And not for nothing, it is none of their business. So
Right.
So bravo, Mom. Yeah.
I love that. I'm so glad that you asked her, because that's to me, that seems like we have made some progress. We actually have. We really have. At the same time, I do hear from women in my community, they will, when I post something along the lines of people's impressions of you because you're single, they will sometimes, they'll say, my mom's the worst. So I think it still exists, but I'm so glad to know, because again, my mom, there were some moments early on when I come home for Christmas and they'd be like, well, are you seeing anyone? I'd be like, you know what? If there's anyone that I'm seeing that I'm excited about, you guys will be the first to know for sure.
Right.
So, but also if I come home and I am crying in my bedroom and I don't want to go out and have fun and I can't even enjoy the holidays because I'm so despondent about being single, which I'm not, am I? Have I ever done that coming home? Then we can worry about me and my single status.
Yeah,
but since,
good point.
I tried to encourage them. This isn't fake. Like, I'm not faking that I'm happy. I am really happy. Now, of course, when I called off my wedding, there were some months of difficulty. I'm not saying that every moment in my single season was whistling Dixie, pie in the sky, and tripping through the daisies. But I wanted to encourage them that, like you're like, I am happy. It's not like you've written off ever being partnered, but this is not a second best life that you're living right now.
Yes, exactly. Well, and I feel really good to hear that what I put forward is what they're seeing.
Yeah.
So they see that I'm content and happy in my life, that I'm busy, but not to distract myself from unhappiness. Like, I have embraced my life and I'm enjoying it. And I love that even though I feel that way, that's seen and reflected by my family. They're like, she's good. You know what I mean? Like, that feels really nice that they can see that and feel confident in that, My second favorite thing in your book is this fun fact, and it's so amazing that I have to just read it out loud because I literally laughed out loud. 2 fun facts about ejaculate in the eye. 1, it can remove lash extensions. My lash lady told me that. Also, if you use artificial tanner, it can leave you with some pretty unique splash patterns. First of all, I wish I was a fly on the wall when you're lash lady and you started talking about ejaculate. Is that just like a PSA she adds to everybody that she's treating?
No, I don't think so. But it was funny because we were talking about like lash cleaning and like, when people come in with dirty lashes, how they don't stick as well. And she's like, sometimes I have clients that come in with cum in their eyes. And I was like, stop. No, you don't. And she's like, yeah, girl, I do. And I was like, oh my God.
Wait, and they're literally like, I need assistance, like emergency 911.
Well, no, she was like, but she was like, we can tell if it's like eye crusty or it's like cum. And I was like, that's incredible.
I mean, you really should get a little pamphlet at the end being like,
well, yeah, it's not, it's like, okay, try to avoid these cleaners and face washes that have this chemical in there. And there's no avoid ejaculate, but it should be. So
it should be. That should be a PSA for everyone. Do you have any other random fun facts about sex? I bet you have a million.
Well, for the self-tanner one, so I am a black woman, so I don't self-tan, but this is actually from a sexologist friend. She found this out anecdotally because she was with a guy and she was like sending me photos. She goes, look at my chest. And I was like, what happened?
Oh no.
And she's like, he came on my chest and now my self-tanner's all splotchy.
I have so many questions about the chemical reaction of that.
Yeah, just, I don't know, like some kind of caustic fluid takes off that tanner.
But you got to wonder, like, what's more caustic? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
What kind of things are in that tanner versus like, what is it about, you know, because it's not caustic on your skin.
Yeah, so it might just be to the colorant or something. I don't know. And now I'm thinking like, whoa, could there be some kind of market for like laundry care? But I'm like, no. Now
it's like a Tide pen.
Now we're
it's a Tide pen made with gum.
Organic Tide pen. Like, oh no, that's not going to be
You're like, honey, I just got some tomato sauce on these white pans. Could you just...
Can you imagine that commercial? Oh my God.
Can you just go in the bathroom real quick? Put it in this little pen. Oh my God. I don't know. There might be an undiscovered market that we just hit upon.
We'll hit up Shark Tank. I'm sure they're going to be sure to pick us.
I'm speaking to 4 men. Yeah. 4 men in their 50s.
Oh my God.
You guys, you had the secret all along and you didn't even know. Oh my God. Any more? Please. I want at least one more.
Oh my gosh.
This should be a course in your sexologist degree, by the way. They should literally be like fun facts you didn't know.
Okay, so anecdotally, I've heard from women I've done workshops for whose partners are super into like bodybuilding and stuff. And they're on these like high protein, like smoothie powder diets. And they're like, the ejaculate is like bleach. It smells terrible. It tastes terrible. And I was like, oh, wow. So there must be something true with the like idea that, you know, things like beer, cheese, red meats, those all contribute to a more, I'd say, strong or aggressive tasting and smelling ejaculate as opposed to things like fruit, water, herbs. And so I was like, there might be something to that.
Again, like what the hell is in protein shakes that makes it smell and taste like bleach?
I don't know, but it's like, who's going to, you know, fund that research? Like, hey, we're going to have a bunch of guys just eat a bunch of random foods and then taste their ejaculate.
Who's going to, I would just love the idea of a room full of women just like tasting bowls of cum.
Yeah, like what? Who's going to fund this?
This one's nicer than the other one. Yeah, I would buy this.
Much more palatable. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
10 out of 10 would recommend. Dear God. Did you ever think you'd have this conversation on a podcast?
No, but I love it.
Yes, I'm having a great time. We should be having, again, like talking about normalization, whatever. Like my podcast goes everywhere and beyond. We talk about very serious things. We talk about very silly things. We talk about dating horror stories. Like there's nothing off topic for me because I love having these conversations. I think this is like women talk about these things when you're out, you know, getting a drink together or brunch. So why can't we admit that we have these conversations, you know?
I'm my own best client, right? And authenticity and integrity are such core values of mine that they are the driving forces behind my business rather. So like I can say this with a great degree of certainty. I live this, like I walk my own talk. For me, the best thing about dating with children is that like, ain't nobody got time for bullshit. Period. Yes. There's no waffling and there's no waffling. And I'm not like overcommitting to a relationship in my head and sabotaging it. And I know there's somebody sitting there being like, she's doing this. I'm not doing that. I'm not walking through a relationship 10 seconds in and like foreseeing the future and then ending it in the future so I don't have to commit to it. That's not happening. Mm-hmm. I am so clear on what my needs are as a person, and I am so clear on what our needs are as a family that it's a ridiculously accurate filter as to who can come into our lives. Period. Right? That's a blessing and a curse because, you know, and the pandemic definitely has made this more challenging as well, that, you know, some of us want a long-term relationship and some of us, while waiting for a long-term relationship, are very cool to have a short-term relationship. And that can be a little bit tricky, of course, in the pandemic, but of course, balancing a family as well, because there's not a lot of room for spontaneity. So, you know, if I have my kids half time, that means that for 1 week, I'm 100% on. And even when they're not physically in my care, my brain is still, you know, simmering away of like, I do need to make sure I'm available in case anything goes wrong, right? So it's like you don't fully turn it off. But yeah, there's no like, hey, what are you doing tonight? You want to grab this? It's like, I can't, but how about next Wednesday?
You got to plan it. Yeah.
And so that's a challenge I find, while there's still a lot of freedom, and especially, as I say, with respect to knowing so specifically what you want and need. It's like an incredible filter or lens that you can put onto a relationship, and even like visualizing that relationship. Like, it's so easy to tap into exactly who this person is and what the dynamic feels like for our family and for my own intimate relationship. That is such an advantage, I think, to having kids, because you just know so accurately what you want.
I love that you use the term freedom in that too, because I think there's a mindset for single women that the more selective they are, the less likely they are to find someone, or God forbid, this word has come up in previous podcasts, they're picky. But I love that you think that that's an advantage. That's a benefit. There's freedom to knowing exactly what you want. That's beautiful.
I really do. And I feel like I've struggled with this myself, but we lose sight of the scale, right? We get so focused on what we can see, touch, look at, whatever. We forget that there are like 7 billion people in the world. The scale of how many people are available is shocking. Like, I don't think you can fully wrap your head around it. And so, we meet 3 people, and it's like, and I've totally done this. It's like, well, guess that's it for me. Like, there's I'm single forever. And it's like, okay, you've dated 3 people. So maybe we could just dial that back and extrapolate that there are so many more people.
So what is the biggest shift that you saw in dating, like, as a whole in the pandemic?
I think people were, and even now, like, I'm seeing this, getting a little bit more, believe it or not, serious about it. Mm-hmm. They were really starting to become a little bit more aware of what was really important to them. So it got a little easier, I think, in matching. Because sometimes, when you're busy and you're like, okay, here's what I want. You just make a list of things. But you don't really have time to sit and reflect after a date or before a date or your last relationship. Even sometimes you just jump right back into dating. Mm-hmm. So I think people had a little bit more time to reflect and really go, okay, let me just narrow this down and get specific and really think about what's important. So I think we're still seeing that, which is good.
Yeah.
But now there's more people dating.
Yeah.
So it's good.
There were definitely, there were people that like said, I'm taking a pause, I'll come back.
Yeah, we had, I don't know what the percentage is. I wish I probably should have put that in my notes somewhere, but we definitely had a certain percentage of clients that took a pause, went on hold. I don't know if I want to do virtual. I don't know if I want to meet anyone. I don't know what I want to do yet. Let's just see what happens. And then they'd come back and be a little bit more reflective. And a lot of people were on hold for the whole summer,
Of 2020?
Of 2020.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there people that like took the entire pandemic off and are just rejoining?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The people that weren't probably comfortable dating virtually.
Right.
Especially. Yeah. Or, even when their restaurants started reopening, still weren't necessarily leaving their house.
Right.
So they were like, I'm not ready,
It's just been really fascinating to me to talk to people about everyone's particulars, like what people are comfortable with, people's boundaries, like whether this was a time to increase your dating. Like some people, there was increased loneliness.
Yeah.
So there was more swiping, but less dating.
Yeah.
Or there was like less swiping because people were like, no one's being serious, so I'm not going to play this dumb game.
Yeah.
It's just been, it's just so fascinating to me that how different the whole thing has gone for people.
It's really strange because some of the people you would think would be out there were like not dating at all. Like we had a lot of older men and women that were dating virtually that I'm surprised they wanted to do that. But a lot of, I will just say in general, people felt more comfortable with doing a Zoom first because it was like less wasted time, because then you can, see that person, really there's no filter on Zoom, right? Get to know them and then decide, do I want to meet this person? So it actually was more time efficient.
I love it. I keep saying, I was like, this, what I'm going to take going forward, I would like to, is just like to implement the FaceTime date.
Yeah.
Because it's a really nice screening process. Did you end up getting like new clients in the pandemic?
A lot.
Really?
I think the loneliness, people that were, and especially those that were single for a long time, but didn't really have the time to take it, that were forced to. I mean, I don't want to say men or women, but there were a lot of people that just were like, wait, I don't cook for myself. I usually go out to a restaurant and meet people and meet my friends, and now I'm at home. So we got a lot of new clients.
Amazing.
I didn't really see, it wasn't a difference in like a huge difference in the amount of people joining. It might have been a little bit, of the people that were on hold and not dating, but we still got a lot of new clients throughout the whole pandemic.
That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, going back to like, based on the conversations I've had in the past year, I do think because people were faced to grapple with their loneliness and there was a lot more time to really just not be distracted by your life, but to really sit and evaluate, okay, here I am at in my life. What is it I'm doing? What is it I want with my life?
Yeah.
What is my future? Let me not just do things just to like entertain myself or distract myself, but let me get serious about how to move forward and how do I make those steps happen? So I can see why people might reach out to a matchmaking agency for that assistance.
Yeah. The virtual thing really, I think, was a huge help with that. But, it's funny because a lot of people that called in didn't even ask, like, how are we supposed to date right now? They just,
they're like, help.
Just like, get us on dates. Yeah.
So you guys say that one of the reasons you wanted to create a double dating app was to create a safer environment for women in terms of the numbers of sexual assault crimes against women that stem from people that they meet while dating. I hope you don't mind if this gets too personal, but that's also the kind of the MO of #single. Did this stem from any specific experience that either of you guys had?
I've had a bunch of near misses. So I feel very fortunate that nothing happened to me. But at the same time, when we reflect back on those near misses, it could have been really tragic. For example, one of the examples the stories that we talk about is when I was a student at Penn State, and we went to the hockey house because they were having a party, and there was a boy that I was interested in, and all my friends had left because they didn't know that I wanted to stay to talk to this boy. And so I was left alone, and it was probably, a few hours had passed, and then I was like, okay, I probably should go home. And it's very difficult at Penn State to get a taxi. This was before the days of Uber and Lyft. So it was extremely difficult to get a taxi. So I just started walking because it was like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, ready to be home and in my bed because it's freezing in the valley, and I wasn't made for that kind of weather. So I was walking home, and that was a Saturday night, so Sunday happens. Monday I go to class, and I look at the Daily Collegian, which is a school newspaper, and it's talking about how a girl was walking home by herself on College Ave at 3 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning, which is where I was at that time, and she was pulled into the bushes, and she was raped by a man. So that was really scary to read about because, who knows how much sooner or how much later that it was her instead of me.
Right.
So, that's awful. Someone should never be in that situation. You shouldn't be going home by yourself, You should be with a friend. So with foreplay, it solves that problem. You're going out with your friend, you're coming home, hopefully, with your friend. So that was just one of the experiences that, I've had that really motivates us to want to make it a safer dating space.
Yeah.
I think also, we have physical safety in mind, but we also have protecting mental health in mind. And I think that women who have had experiences with sexual trauma, it is really hard for them to think about going on a dating app with a stranger that they met on the internet. Yeah. But it also feels like it's the only way to meet someone. Like it doesn't really feel like there are any other options these days. If you're single, like that's how you're going to meet the person that you'll be in your next relationship with. Sadly, it feels like that's more of a truth every day. And so how do we give those people a chance to use the modern technology in a way that feels more comfortable for them? And also, for me, in my personal history, I am in recovery from an eating disorder. And so for me, I feel that the one-on-one dating thing, while I'm willing to have one-on-one dates once I feel comfortable and have chemistry with someone, they are uncomfortable for me when I meet someone random from the internet because I don't like feeling like I'm being assessed, like that I'm being watched, you know, like what I'm drinking, what I'm eating. That's something that I'm very aware of, given my history with an eating disorder. And I feel that bringing a friend kind of takes the pressure off. Like, I don't feel that I'm judged as much. I feel like everybody's kind of distracted. And I feel that I can just be myself because I'm being myself with my friend. So I think, you know, we have to think about the people who aren't just typical. There are so many people who feel unsafe using the dating apps, feel vulnerable using the dating apps, and particularly women. So we want to give women a dating app that makes them feel more confident.
I love that. I think you guys address a lot of issues that are not spoken about in the dating culture. There is an assumption that everything is going to be fine, but we have to be realists and realize that every single time that you put yourself out there, you're exposing yourself to potential risk. Yeah, it's also very emotionally challenging to introduce yourself to a total stranger and be in a place of judgment and, as you said, being assessed, and like you said, the mental implications of that in everyday small ways that we just don't talk about. Like, dating is so hard on multiple levels. It asks a lot from women every single time they do it, and yet it's cast off as like this casual thing that you're just supposed to know how to do, that you're supposed to be good at, that you're supposed to be okay with doing, that we do because everyone else does it. But the more we have these conversations that really talk about the reality of dating, which is what I'm trying to do with this podcast, like, what is it really like out there? What messages are men receiving?
Yeah.
How am I being treated when I go on a first date? Why isn't this freaking working? Then hopefully we can really get to a better place in our society.
We really have been like oversimplifying the dating process, and people think it's easier that way. Like, a lot of people who aren't involved in it, like, we have many friends who have been in relationships with their boyfriends or husbands since college, and they never swiped right per se, and they think it's never been easier. But the truth is, because it's so simple, it's actually oversimplified to the point where we question ourselves if it's not working because it's just so simple. But in reality, it's not supposed to be that simple. Like, there should be a period of like getting to know one another, and like there's more than just swiping on someone's picture. Like, get to know one another, like, before expecting chemistry or before expecting something romantic to bud.
It's so crazy. I think I talk about this a lot. The expectation that it's just supposed to like magically work or magically be good or magically be safe, when there's so many things that I'm like, no, I'm not going to give you my phone number before we meet. No, I'm not going to come to your apartment on the first date. No, I'm not going to allow you to send me pictures before I know what you look like in person. Like, it's insane to me. It is insane. I'm just like, why? Like, I think people, at least the guys that I'm like talking with, just are like so excited to jump into like relationship territory. And I'm like, I don't know you. You don't know me.
Yeah,
like,
that is this. I mean, don't even get me started because I get so passionate about this. I don't know you. Why are you trying to connect with me on every single platform that you're on? Why are you asking for my Instagram? I don't want you seeing what my nieces and nephews look like. Or it's very weird to me. Why are you like sending me pictures while you're like on your hike instead of enjoying your hike when I've never met you in real life? It's very strange to me. It's like, what's the deal there? It's because we're just so easily accessible, and now we're so easily exposable.
If you are thinking of divorce, you're going through divorce, or even if you're single and you don't know about your money, find someone to help you through and educate you just a little bit. You don't need to be a pro. Don't ever do it. It's not, unless it's a passion, don't try to become one. But like for me, I love it. But it's such a great thing to learn a little bit, even if it's just listening to podcasts like this today and just knowing, hey, others feel the same way as I do. I have anxiety about this money stuff. It's okay.
Well, also just having an ally, like I feel like there's a stigma, again, a generalization, but I believe that there is a stigma of women talking to male financial advisors, because we
in our culture, there's a huge lack in education and financial literacy. And there's a huge lack in financial literacy in like teaching that information to our daughters. So there's a lot of times that like women feel weird talking about men in the financial space. So being able to talk to you and being like, yo, I do not know what this is, you know what I mean? Like, and just be honest about it and be like, I'm overwhelmed, or like, this is confusing to me. I don't understand this language. I imagine that feels really like, it's like a safe space. Like I said, you're an ally to people who may feel a little adrift in a situation that's new or uncomfortable to them.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. You're all, you know, it's all the same. We all feel these terrible feelings when it comes to money. And on top of that, having other experiences going on in life, because life is not just linear of nothing's going wrong but one thing. There's a lot of things going on. So having an ally is huge.
So you have this beautiful title, Behavioral Financial Advisor, which I'd, truth be told, never heard of until I read your bio.
All this stuff is brand new. So anyone who's listening, I promise if you haven't heard of it, you're not the only one, just like you just said. Like no one knows about it yet. It's brand new. And so the certified financial planning designation I have, they just this year added to the examination process that takes a year to study for. They just added behavioral finance as one of the pillars that people need to know about. So it's brand new, just a few years old. And it's all about the emotions and investing and talking about your money. Like, how do you get to where you are? What kind of investor are you? Are you a saver versus a spender, and why, and how did you get there? So it really develops the acknowledgement of emotions in investing, because we all have them. I don't care if you are on TV as the biggest financial expert, you still have emotions and you're still trying to work through that with your own financial situation. And so it just dives into all this fun terminology that has to do with money and emotions, which, as you can tell, if I work with a therapist and I work with money, I'm totally in that world. I love it, but it's new. It's a new world.
It's so fascinating because it's so real. And I guess like, I love that it was just acknowledged, because there's such a stigma around money, and it all comes from the way that you were taught about money and how your family approaches money.
Money is the root of all evil. All of these things that they might have heard as a child still is with them. So even if they could have done really good with that money, they still think it's greedy to have, and they're going to get rid of it whether they know they are or not. So they have to work through those issues of, okay, well, if I have a few million and I work through how I was spoken to in childhood, and money doesn't grow on trees, let's say, it's one of the things they heard, or scripts. There's a lot of different things that people grow up with. And if you get through that, you can use money for good. If you thought it was greed and now it's good, you can change your mentality behaviorally with money. So it's fascinating that you bring that up, because that's a huge thing that we talk about in my Financial Psychology Institute classes all the time.
I think that the whole topic of behavioral finance, as you call it, or what was the phrase you just used?
Financial therapy as well.
Financial therapy and the psychology of money, is that it?
That's one, and behavioral neuroeconomics.
Oh my God. But it's so interesting. And I think that's like, it's also tied into the way that we're weird about money in America. Yes. I feel like what's trending right now is that people are getting really clear with what they need from people. And if they meet someone or match with someone that's not going to fill that need, move the fuck on, you know?
God, yeah, I hope so.
100%.
Yeah.
I hope so too. I use the word generally because I'm not meeting these people all the time.
You know, it's funny, even just what we were just talking about, like in terms of right now, people feeling more comfortable sharing their needs. I personally think it's much harder for women, you know, and I may be biased, but like to be vocal about what they want. I think just because of, you know, societal norms and how we were raised, like, I think it's just very easy for us to like fall into this accommodating role that we've played for so long. So I guess I would say with our story, and I don't want to repeat myself because I think I've already kind of gone on a tangent about this, but I do think like in terms of like the larger umbrella of what people are looking for, I hope our story is kind of showing that like when you tap into yourself and you're able to better express who you are and what you're looking for, and you're able to be honest about that with yourself and the person that you're dating, you're more likely going to find what you're looking for, and you're more likely going to find connection. And I say that too because it's like, it's personal to me. Like, I feel like I've been dating for a really long time too. And that was kind of the journey I went on, where it's like, oh, I'm trying to like play like the cool girl and like pretend I don't want a relationship, or I don't care. I'm like chill and laid back, right? That's like the role that I feel like I thought I was supposed to fill. And then it's like, how do I tap into being more authentic into like what I want, and like sharing my needs and like sharing what I'm looking for. And so I feel like we were trying to show that in our story, of like being honest about what you want, and hopefully that then you're then able to find someone who can meet you there.
Beautiful.
Another thing that a lot of women share, or something that I know I personally relate to, is just like, is people pleasing. Like, I think that that's just been a huge part of my own personal growth story, especially also like in terms of, and in relationship to desire, and just kind of that automatic instinct of putting somebody else's needs in front of your own, instead of just taking the moment to be like, what do I actually want? What's my desire? I'm a woman and I'm allowed to like have desire. And so even in like our character story, again, just something as simple as hearing, like being called nice, hearing these things over and over again, and just taking a moment, like in a date, in the moment, be able to like pause and be like, hey, that actually bothered me that you said that, as opposed to just nodding and going along and being like, oh, I don't want to ruffle any feathers because then what if I'm not liked? So yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking about that, and I think hopefully, yeah, I mean, everything that Erin said, you know, hopefully our story is able to be one that is empowering, and that you can really see all the great things that can come from leading with your authentic self, and saying no to people pleasing, and putting yourself first.
And the ownership of and this is like 100% what I talk about on the podcast all the time. It's just like ownership of where you're at in your life, and like being at peace with who you are and the circumstances that you're in. You know, I think that's something that we all struggle with. Women and men, but women especially, 100%. I think everyone thinks as sort of like, sometimes it could be three, like a throuple, or like four, like two partners sharing. So I think that's why there's so much miscommunication about polyamory, is because it's a little undefined and it's different for everybody. But that's what makes it thrilling and exciting too, you know?
Yeah, it's funny because there is an overrepresentation, in the little bit of representation that there is about polyamory, there's for some reason an overrepresentation of triads, like you're talking about. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because it's more, I don't know, it feels like more out there for people, so they're just more interested in that kind. But there's plenty of very healthy triads, but it's not been my main experience with polyamory.
Do you prefer the word triad over throuple? Because I haven't heard triad before.
Yeah, I don't know why I don't really like the word throuple. It just feels...
It's corny.
Kind of, yeah.
I hate it. I hate it coming out of my mouth. I hate saying it. Like,
yeah, and maybe because it tries to change the word couple, and I'm like, well, it's just like a different thing altogether.
Valid. Super valid. Yeah. Okay, so back to your personal story. You were in the middle of breaking up with your two partners when this show came to be?
Yeah, so I had, two relationships takes a lot of time. And then one of them went away, so I had all this time on my hands, and I was experiencing this very unique thing of, like I said, having a romantic partner console me through this breakup. And I just started writing. So by the time the first representation came about, I was only dating one person, Dawn, who I'm still with. And yeah, that's where I was in my life. I had an idea. I had learned a lot. I had an idea of the mistakes I had done in my early, relationships, managing just this like first foray into polyamory. But the show is really covering my journey to it. So the journey, even before I had my two partners, just starting to question monogamy and starting to do explorations. The show also starts when I moved to New York City from Montreal, which I think for me was just kind of like, oh, now I'm really anonymous in this very large city. And I think it's a very common thing that people move to New York City and then start to explore things that they were not able to do
like
in their small
your
town.
Identity. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So you've been dating this person for a long time. Are you technically back into monogamy or
No.
Okay, so it's him plus others as well.
Yeah, so I did break up with a different partner again last winter. So now I do only have him as a partner, but he has been with another partner for 3 years and I love her. We get along really well. She's a part of our family. She and I don't have a romantic or sexual relationship, but honestly, we have a very, very deep, unique kind. Like, I struggle. I wish there were better words to describe our bond because I think friendship just doesn't cut it. Mm-hmm. Like the kind of intimacy that you develop with someone when you share a partner, like just from the fact that she has intimacy with this person that I also love and have intimacy with. And we do share, we don't all live together, but we do share, sometimes we'll spend a week together in a cabin, upstate. We'll go on a trip. And she's really, she's a part of my family. And I think that's something I discovered in polyamory that I was not at all expecting when I first set out to explore it. Mm-hmm. At first I was really thinking about my desire to, I think, remain an individual, also be able to explore, not just sexually. I think a lot of people think of polyamory as a way to have multiple sexual partners. And
100%,
sure, that's one side of it. And I think some people will leave it at that. Like some people have very defined boundaries around what they would call a primary relationship. And then they'll have everything that's kind of secondary and that's much more casual. Or if there are feelings involved, it's clearly, lesser than this sort of primary relationship where you do everything the same as most monogamous couples will do it. Like like meet family and maybe you live together, have children, get married, that sort of stuff. But for me, it was just clear that with different partners, I develop different kinds of intimacy and I feel different sides of myself come out. And I just could never conceptualize just choosing the one person forever. And just the idea that I would, the idea that this person would have to fill every single one of my needs. And it just felt, I don't know. It felt claustrophobic a little bit.
Yeah. When you put it that way, I'm like, it does sound totally insane, actually, that you're going to find one person. Yeah. I mean, as a person who's been single for 10 years, the longer I'm single, the more that idea sounds totally absurd to me. Like that I'm going to miraculously suddenly find this one person that's going to like be this figure in my life for all of those reasons. So I'm vibing with what you're saying. I was thinking like when you were trying to describe there is a lack of word for that kind of particular relationship with the female partner of your partner. And I'm just thinking about the level of trust that would have to be there would supersede just a standard level of trust in a friendship. Like that I can see why friendship doesn't feel significant enough because you two have to have such an intense bond and so much trust in each other and faith in each other and comfort and communication. Like, it's like almost like a sisterhood, if you will, like a sister.
It is, yeah. Or like, so by the way, the word for like your partner's partner is metamor. That's like what they're called in the polyamorous lingo.
Before.
Yeah, and
That's
it's
so
funny.
Cool.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't love that word. Like, it's fine. Like whenever I talk to people who know polyamory or know the word, like I can say like, oh, my metamor, and then they'll know who that is.
I think it sounds beautiful.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it sounds Italian to me. Like it comes from paramour is what it makes me think of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but for me, metamor seems to put the emphasis on the person in between us, and the way I like to do my relationships is that I really care about developing like an actual one-on-one relationship with that person if they want to. That's ideally how I want to do it. And when I started my polyamorous journey, I didn't think about that at all. Like, I think, and a lot of people who, like, you might be thinking about this, when you imagine yourself maybe in a non-monogamous relationship, just like all the feelings of jealousy and having to share. And I think we're really focused on what will this person take away from me? Ooh. And, I'm not gonna lie, the very beginning of my questioning was 10 years ago. So I've been through this for a long time. And yes, there are feelings of jealousy and things to negotiate and boundaries and things like that at first. And especially, like you pointed out, building trust with that person that you're sharing a partner with. But once you're on the other side of that, you can start thinking about all the things that person can bring to your life.
Yeah.
And for me, like Allie, my metamor, she's also a writer and we have a ton of stuff in common. We really like to hike together. We emotionally, I think we process a lot of experiences the same. So we often, call each other for help. And when I moved to New York City, making friendships, platonic friendships, was very hard for me. Mm-hmm. It seemed like everybody was busy, and when I met new people and I tried to make friends, if there wasn't the possibility for sex or love, people just didn't have time for me on their calendar.
Oh, man.
And I've talked to people who also have the same experience. So I think for me, polyamory just kind of gave me a framework to build a different kind of family that's very close, that we're committed to, have long-term projects with, and just like other people who have my back, if that makes sense.
I do think there is some truth to, yes, you'll never know that particular bond and that particular love. And if you make that decision not to be a parent, then I guess you have to come to terms with that is something you won't know in your life. Just as having children means that the freedom that we have right now is something that people with kids will never know, in their adult life.
Yeah, they'll never know what it's like to be middle-aged and single without children. It's so fun. But the other big issue with being child-free by choice is that people really judge that choice.
Yes.
So it's sort of like, you must be really selfish. Or they'll say a lot of things like, there's still time. They think that the decision is temporary, or they think that it's just because I don't have a man or something like that. It's really crazy. And it's sort of like, you hear all this stuff about the most important job is being a mom. It's like, okay, am I a woman if I didn't give birth? Like that my body, people say, your body was made for this. And so if you're not doing this thing your body was made for, are you not, fulfilling this, prophecy, sort of, so to speak? Again, I'm an atheist, as you read in my bio. So, but people get really judgmental if this is the choice that you make. It's kind of amazing how often people will be rude enough to speak to me openly about that choice I made.
Yeah, I think it comes from a place of like you all have to come to terms with any choice that you make. Like if you decide in your life to have a child and it is hard, but you have committed to it, you have to convince yourself that it is the best decision. So other people's decisions, therefore, how could you not have children? You're selfish. How dare you? That's the only logic I can come of it.
Well, it's interesting when we started sharing this project with different producers, and a lot of men were kind of like, what? Or a lot of people thought, how is this a conflict? Like, isn't your life amazing? And it's like, there are parts of my life that are amazing, but no, like there's a lot of pain that comes from this decision and a lot of discomfort that comes from this decision.
If you watched our pilot, and, there was this scene where my character is left out of a party because the only people that are invited to like little kids parties are other people with little kids. But if all of your friends have little kids except you, all of your friends are invited. And then you see everybody on Facebook like standing around drinking wine. And it's like, I can stand around and drink wine. I don't, just because I don't have a kid there, why am I not included? And that happened to me, and I felt incredibly, incredibly left out. So those stories, we have a gazillion stories from our own real lives about how this decision has affected everything.
Right. We have a character on the show who wanted a baby so terribly bad and has it, and now that she's in it, she's scared to death that if she's doing it right or not. So but she's afraid to admit that it's hard. She's afraid to admit that perhaps she feels that she is in over her head, or perhaps she's afraid to say, I want my single life back. She's not single, but I want my child-free life back. Like, she, like you said, so this show, even though in reality someone may not say that, in this show, everybody's truth, Katie, everybody actually is revealing that side of them, that fear of, maybe there is something else that I'm missing out. Maybe this choice that I've made was the wrong choice.
And how does that affect everything else? Like, I'm back in the dating pool, right? So it's like when I meet people on the dating apps, it's like if they want children, they're out for me, right? Or if they have children, they're out for me. So how does that affect me now as a middle-aged woman trying to find a partner? And it's hard. It's really hard.
I think like one of the themes that I get recurring from this podcast is that no matter what decision a woman makes in her life, there is always going to be in the back of her head this doubt that this is the wrong choice. And it doesn't matter what the decision is. It could be changing jobs. It could be moving to another country. It could be a divorce. It could be having children. It could be not having children. Literally everything. I don't know why we just innately second guess everything. And I don't know if it's internal or if we've been socialized or if it's the damn patriarchy that has told us that we can't be confident in our decisions. But I'm fascinated by the idea that there is fear on both ends of it. The fear of like, what if I never find a partner? What if I never have kids? This is so personal story. My neighbors recently had a child, and during quarantine, that child was 1.5 to 2 years old, and they were sleep training her. And I started referring to her as Screamy Baby because that is all I heard was Screamy Baby. And it was just so loud. And
that's
specifically,
awful.
I would hear it at 7:30 and I was like, oh, it's bedtime. All of it like just solidified the like not having kids thing. I was like, this is motherfucking miserable, right?
Yeah.
But I can sit here at the same time curious or maybe even worried, dare I say, that like, I don't know, what if I'm missing out?
Right. And also you were talking before about, you in your 20s, you just assumed that you would, right? So did I. I was like, you get married, you have children. That's what happens.
I have a name book, girl. I bet you every woman in America has a goddamn name book.
Yeah, Keegan. Okay, anywho, the other thing is like now I feel like thank God my brother had children, but it's also like one of my closest friends is an only child. And then deciding not to have children, how do their parents feel about never having grandchildren? Like your decision isn't just about you when you come from this family structure. So it's like, oh God, am I denying my parents the opportunity to be grandparents?
Yes.
That's
Yes,
absolutely,
I am.
That's absolutely part of it. Or like, this came up recently because my brother is gay and he could still have children, and we don't know the future of that, right? But and I'm 41 and single, so it is less likely that I'm going to have children. I have a smaller window. Let's just say that, right?
Right.
I have 2 total cousins, and one of them named his daughter with a hyphenate last name. And I have this very Republican uncle that is freaking out that the family name is going to die.
Oh, I'm the last one of mine.
I'm just like, do you know how many family names have died in the centuries of America? Like, People do it willingly all the time. Like, no one needs to chase the heirs. There's goddamn ancestry.com if you really need to know who you're connected to. Like,
yeah, but I am the last one in my family. But it's funny, nobody's actually brought that up except for me. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, guys. I'm so sorry.
You're the last in a legacy.
But yes, in answer to your question, will you regret it? Yes.
Yeah,
you always.
If you did it, would you regret it? Yes.
Maybe. Yes. So it's like every choice you make, not just this parenting choice, right? Every choice we make comes with not making the other choice.
Most people fall into codependent relationships where they're so focused on making sure that their partner makes them happy, or they feel needed, or they're so intertwined in that relationship where you almost end up with this parent-child dynamic. Whether that's a woman trying to make sure that a guy steps up and does all these different things, or whether there's a woman who's kind of needy to a guy, or whatever that might be. And that's where you miss out on this sexual chemistry and that passion that feels absolutely freaking amazing. You can't have that if you're in that parent-child dynamic. Right. So it's more about, when I have a look at relationships that fail, there's a few different things behind that. Often it's things like communication. People just don't know how to really talk and connect with each other. And that ruins so many relationships. The other thing is that people don't know themselves enough to be able to say, okay, this person's right for me or this person isn't. And also we tend to find that people end up being in a place where we talk about that collaboration piece and being accountable for yourselves. Well, most people who feel unhappy within their life or feel unhappy within themselves project that onto the partner, and it becomes the partner's fault. So when we have a look at relationships as a whole, I think the reason that over 50% of marriages fail is because either they've not gone into a relationship with a compatible partner, they've not been in a place to be able to communicate fully so they get their needs met, and also they don't either know themselves enough, or they don't understand themselves enough in a way that they can make themselves happy and still build an amazing life alongside being in a relationship without allowing that to be their partner's responsibility.
Yeah. So what you're saying is like, it's not just that individualism and being a good partner are at odds with each other. It's actually the reverse, that in order to be a good partner, you need to be individualistic in that you're so self-confident in your own right.
Yeah. Yeah, because what we tend to find is people are going into relationships purely to get. And it's like, look, you're not perfect. Your partner's not perfect. Yet you're expecting this perfect dynamic, and for them to make you happy, and for them to do this and do that. And the other thing is, you think about emotions in general. Our emotions go up and down. Like they're, all over the place sometimes. And it's like, we don't give that allowance for a partner to go through that as well. And it's almost like we put so much emphasis on the partner being perfect.
Yeah.
And when they don't meet those expectations, it's this big, massive, oh no, this is the wrong relationship, or this is wrong, rather than actually going, okay, how can we make this better? How do we, is this something that you need to deal with, or I need to deal with, or is it something that we need to work together on?
Yeah. And that's totally what I was vibrating with, is this era of like egotism and, like I said, the me decade of Instagram, where we all believe we're so freaking fabulous that we are better than the losers that we're matching with. But if everyone is feeling that they're so amazing, no one wants to actually put in the effort for the other person. We all kind of expect the other person to come to us. That's what I'm experiencing on dating apps, for example, like this, I don't have enough time to talk to you because I'm so busy, or, like expecting the other person to set up the date, etc. But I think it's a really beautiful reframe to lean into not being unapologetic about prioritizing ourselves, but using prioritizing ourselves in order to show up for a better person.
Yeah. And just to add on where you were saying about, you have these people like the influencers on Instagram and saying how amazing they are. It's also discovering if that's the truth or if that's the facade.
Totally true.
Yeah.
Totally true. Yeah. Yeah.
And this is the other thing with dating. This is why I love body language so much, because most people only get to the point where they've got two facades, interacting. And with the body language, we're able to support people to connect with the real person, not the facade. And that's super important, especially when you're looking at that person. You want the truth of that person to know if they're the right person to develop that relationship with.
Whatever happens for you in December, with people, without people, as you transition into a brand new year where we start over, I hope you find some space to have grace for yourself and for others. And I cannot wait to bring you brand new, awesome episodes for 2022. That's it for this episode. We will catch you next time.